Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach, brought to you by the TeacherCast Educational Network. If you are in charge of professional development and looking to build an innovative digital learning experience, this is the podcast for you. Join us each week as we uncover strategies that tech coaches are using to drive their digital transformations one classroom at a time. And now for your host, with over 2 decades of experience working with tech coaches and ed tech companies from all around the world, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 231, and welcome to 2023. I am so excited for this year. Lots of great stuff happening over on not only the TeacherCast Educational Network, but also on Ask the Tech Coach. If you are new to this show, welcome. I am so glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking all about video in the classroom, video as a coach. And I have a fantastic guest today who is an expert among experts on live podcasting, live broadcasting, helping brands set up their live streaming. And we are going to go into all of that stuff, including how you can create a standards-based broadcasting environment, all today. If you have not yet taken the time to check out all of our coaching equipment and coaching blog posts and podcasts, head on over to our main site, askthetechcoach.com. Scroll down to the bottom. We have all of our blogs, our podcasts, our freebies, lots of new freebies coming up. But also you can join our free Instructional Coaches Network. Check all of that stuff out today. We have more than 1,200 instructional coaches on our Facebook group. Would love to have you guys be a part of that. We are just getting started this year. Lots of other great webinars coming up too. So I hope you guys are here. And again, I want to say thank you for making TeacherCast your home for professional development. My guest today is an author, a live streamer, and the founder of Live Stream Universe. He is also an on-air personality that is helping the world learn about video, broadcasting, live streaming. He is the expert among experts. And in addition to being that, he's a great friend. I want to bring on today my guest for today, Mr. Ross Brand. Ross, how are you today? Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach.
I'm doing great, Jeff. It's always great to be on with you. Thanks so much for having me.
I am so thrilled to have you back on. It's been quite a while. I think the last time you were on a show was before that pandemic thing happened. How have you been? And tell us what you've been up to these days.
Well, I mean, live streaming really took off during that time, and not just live streaming to social and monetization destinations, but actually using platforms with live video in our work situations, perhaps in education situations. We all spent a lot of time on Zoom. I got some Zoom fatigue, but also everybody sort of has some sort of understanding of what I do now in comparison to pre-pandemic. I'm just glad that, people in my family have made it through and that you're healthy and, people have survived this difficult time.
Well, I think it's two things. We have an understanding of what you do, but also now we have that empathy of, that's what it's like to stand in front of a camera and do
right.
do this thing over and over again. Now, I'm excited to have you on, and one of the reasons is because you're outside of that world of education. You have this amazing opportunity every single week to reach your audience, to build your audience, to work with companies, to work with individuals on the use of video, on the use of streaming. As we're turning the corner, as we're starting off in 2023, I'm excited about where we are. I'm excited about the technologies. I'm excited about the fact that it's easier now than it was even this time last year to get kids into audio and video, get kids editing audio and video, getting kids producing audio and video. Where do you see things as we move into 2023? If I was to ask you, what is the state of broadcasting?
Well, I think in terms of live streaming, even podcasting to an extent, we're seeing a shift going on, right? In the beginning, it was all about getting your content out on social channels and building your audience there and having people watch it on social channels. Now it's much more about using the tools and the skill sets to deliver content to smaller groups of people, often in private or gated or communal type settings. So whether you're an entrepreneur and you have a group of people that come together and want to pick your brain and hear what you have to say on the issues of the day, you may live stream a talk, a training, something like that. We're also seeing it used within organizations, big business, where live streaming is one of the ways, a town hall that a CEO can talk to employees all over the world in real time. And of course, we're seeing it in education. I mean, your classes often use Zoom, but you're also seeing, I did a guest lecture at NYU in which we live streamed it to LinkedIn Live. And so that's an interesting, there's just so many different ways to use it, but the primary audience was the students in the classroom. The secondary audience was if anybody was watching on LinkedIn Live, which to my pleasant surprise, more than a few people did pay attention to that. But it's really about who's your core audience and how can you more effectively deliver a message to them when you can't be there with them in person.
I'm glad that you just put it that way. Who's your audience? How do you tell that story? How do you send your message? I'm looking right now, Ross, at the ISTE Standards. And for those who are new to the platform, the ISTE Standards are basically the guidelines for digital learning. Right. And if you look at them, we have things like being an empowered learner, being a digital citizen, a knowledge constructor, being innovative designer, computational thinker, creative communicator, global collaborator. These 7 guidelines that we have, I can't think of a single standard that isn't hit when we empower students to create video and share their stories or the stories of the world around them on video. As a coach, this is what we think about when we're trying to work with our teachers and work with our students. But as somebody who's not directly in the classroom, Ross, I'm curious to know your opinion. Why should students today of all levels, and let's talk kindergarten on up, why should students be learning how to use video to tell a story?
Number one, it's the way we communicate in the 2020s. So much of our consuming and creating and delivering and sharing our message comes online in the form of video. Probably, 80+% of online traffic is probably video. That's where everybody's going. I mean, YouTube is the second biggest search engine. So if you're building any kind of brand for yourself or your business, you want to have a presence on YouTube. And Amazon is the third biggest search engine. And so even if you're an author, you want to take advantage of video opportunities within Amazon. I do Amazon Lives where, among other products, I can promote my book. And so there's a lot of different ways. But I think, number one is it's the way we communicate. And number two, it's the way we work. So the skill set that you develop by using online audio and video tools will help you make a positive impression when your sales pitch is happening on Zoom, when you're meeting as a teacher with a parent on Zoom or on another video conferencing platform. It's how students are going to perhaps go on virtual tours of colleges. So, because, the economy is such that, the old college tour where you drove all over the Northeast, let's say, and you hit every school, you could hit it in 6 months, out from when you were going to apply. Those days are probably past. So you can now go on a virtual tours. You can ask questions. You may have your interview online. I remember sometimes when students couldn't get to a university for their interview, they actually would go to interview with an alumni rep who lived somewhere in the area. Well, now with audio and video communication online, we conduct the interview using the same type of platform that we're using to conduct our conversation right now. And developing that skill set for students will make a difference in how they present themselves, how they communicate, how they are viewed in terms of being ready for the college experience, and how professional and how polished they are. And you don't have to be perfect by any means. I mean, this is real life, it's live, and people understand that. But there's a lot, and you know this, Jeff, from having done this over the years, there are a lot of people who rushed into that void when they had no choice, and they really weren't ready. And, you know, if you don't have some of the basics in place for audio and video and your lighting, it's hard to make a good impression on these platforms. And then you become the one where it's like, can you please mute your mic, sir, and whatever. And you don't want to be that guy. So there's a lot of reasons that it's worth learning these skills. I also think one more thing is, I think, teams have become virtual teams, dispersed teams where, one employee is in the U.S. and another's in China and another's in England and another's in Italy, and they have to meet on live video. That's a part of it. And even in college, I know a lot of the class projects are now team projects. And I think it would be great for students to learn how to relate with one another and work with one another in a online setting with audio and video, so that they're prepared when they face these situations, either in higher education or in the real world.
I think it's more important, as you just mentioned, that because of their futures, they need to have these skills. Meeting with those college reps, meeting with those future job interviews, just being able to do these things. Unfortunately, there's so many different options out there. And I'll say that in a different way. Fortunately, there's so many different options out there. As a coach, where I'm specifically right now in a elementary school, I mostly deal with K through 5. I bring in video applications such as WeVideo, which is an online collaborative video thing. It's got millions of different fonts and stock images, etc. Very easy to use. Works with applications like Teams, works with applications like Google Classroom. A teacher can create, students can have access to things. Microsoft also just acquired, and I haven't had a chance to try this yet, although I'm seeing videos pop up, a great company called Clipchamp. And that's now going to be part of the Office suite and Windows 11. And if you've got a Windows machine, you've probably already got it on your machine right now. But Clipchamp, again, is one of those online-based video applications, easy to use. And between WeVideo and Clipchamp, they're basically the same interface. You got some media, you got a timeline, you got a preview thing. Another one that's coming up, Ross, I don't know if you've had a chance to try this out yet, but Canva. Canva started off as that graphics program that we all know and love. I use it every single day, but now Canva video. And in education, Canva's free. I mean, for any school district out there, you can bring Canva in with an unlimited hard drive. For storing and making and editing videos. You can do that for free. I'm curious, in that beginner realm, do you have a favorite, or if somebody came up to you at a conference and said, hey, my 9-year-old is looking to get into video, what do you recommend for producing, editing, publishing? Like, what's like a good beginner app that you would recommend?
I think Canva is the internet right now. I mean, Facebook was trying to become the internet, And I think Canva stepped in, and you can do almost everything you need to do for work, for school, for creative endeavors now in Canva. If you brought up Canva to me a year and a half ago, I would have said, yeah, it's probably better than most tools of that level. It's a step or two ahead. Now it's a mile ahead. And you can, I mean, there are video professionals, people who get hired to edit video, who are telling me that they're making short videos for online consumption in Canva because it's just so quick, it's so easy, and it's good, and they have lots of templates. I mean, I think for any type of arts project, for any type of digital audio or video project, you can't do better than starting in Canva, where you can record your voice, you can record your screen, you can record presentations. There are documents. If kids get into AI at all, I'm sure that's a controversial issue.
Yeah.
But you can play around with that in Canva. It's really an amazing tool, and like I say, it enables the average person who's not a designer, who doesn't have audio video training, or isn't an artist, to be able to go in and create something that represents them and their brand and their story really well. So I'm super impressed by Canva, and I think if you had even spoken to me a couple months ago, before I had looked behind the hood at what else they were doing, I don't think I would be raving like this. So I think that's a powerful free tool. The other thing is, anything from Microsoft Teams to Google Meet to Zoom, there are free. If you have a Gmail account, you have any of Google's free video tools. If you have anybody can download Zoom and use it for a meeting if you keep the meeting, I believe, under 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Anybody can. I think if you have a Microsoft subscription, you can use Microsoft Teams. I have both a free and I have an online one. I think I have Teams in both, but certainly the Teams is in a very inexpensive package. So there's another collaboration tool that's free or low cost that is pretty high quality too. I mean, they even were working, I don't know whatever came of it, but I know they were working for ways to integrate Teams into some broadcast tools and integrate broadcast tools
it's coming
into Teams. So it's really phenomenal, the power that these free or very low cost tools have. But there's nothing better than your smartphone as well. I mean, you can create everything you need. You can create a movie. You can go live and create a live show. There are so many tools and apps and software for your mobile devices, whether it's a tablet or it's a phone, that, and the cameras and the audio quality without even plugging in a mic are pretty darn good for both of those.
So we'll have to have you on sometime to do a show of just iOS and Android apps, because that is another
Yes.
is another application out there. You were mentioning Teams. Many people that are Microsoft users don't realize that as an Office user, they also have access to something called Microsoft Stream. And Stream is basically YouTube for your domain. So it's an inner office kind of a video platform. But the thing I love about Stream is it automatically detects voice, and it automatically gives transcriptions. Right. So I've been putting any video that I make into Microsoft Stream and having it do the transcriptions, and then I pull those and I can stick those into YouTube. I can use those for client work. I can use those for students that need the accessibility options. Lots of great stuff in there. But Ross, I get asked this once or twice a month. What applications are available if a school is looking to go into live broadcasting? And for me, I usually bring them into the same application we're using right now to record this, which is StreamYard. Now, I understand you know something about StreamYard. Tell me a little bit about StreamYard for those who aren't familiar with it out there.
Yeah, I mean, StreamYard is a browser-based live streaming tool, so you don't have to download any software on your computer. It has a fairly light footprint. It's optimized, so if you don't have great bandwidth, you can still get that stream, that video transmitted to where it needs to go. But the great thing about StreamYard is it's super stable, so you can count on that it's going to work, and it's very easy to use. There's really almost no learning curve to get started with it. And so it's my go-to. I don't want to do a lot of preparation before I go live. I'm hosting and producing at the same time. And the most important thing is I can get my guest on, and I don't have to schedule an hour beforehand to do a lot of tech work and on-screen designs and things like that. It's everything you need to have a good conversation, and then you have the ability to live stream it out to any of the major social destinations. You can embed it on your website. You can record. You get both high quality cloud recording and even higher quality local recording. But the new feature that I'm crazy about, absolutely over the moon for, it's called StreamYard On Air, and it's a webinar platform. It's basically the same StreamYard that we're using to record now or that we've used to go live. But what makes it amazing is that you're streaming actually within StreamYard, within the StreamYard platform. And so you have total control of who attends. So if you want to have a live stream that's for just the students in a certain class who can't make it to school that day, or you want to have a parent-teacher conference but don't want to ask people in inclement weather to travel in, you can have them register with a link and get their email address, or just have it open. You could embed it on a website that's an intranet so that everybody involved with an organization can see it, but nobody outside will see it. Or you could take it and embed it on your website and share it with the world. But what it is it's just a phenomenal tool. Instead of a lot of the complications and the learning curve that come with the Zooms of the world, this is a very easy to use platform where, you know, you can have up to, I believe, 12 people can be on screen or in the conversation at the same time, and other people can be backstage, and then other people can be viewing. It's a great tool.
I certainly agree. We've been using it here on TeacherCast for many, many years and highly recommend it. And if you're looking forward to using it, I do have a full tutorial. It's a couple years old, but it's pretty much still intact for how to use it. You can look for that over on our site here.
The fundamentals are the fundamentals.
The fundamentals. Some of the buttons are in a different spot because they've added features. Now, if anybody wants to get into some more of the advanced stuff, Ross, I always like to play the game here. What's in your toolbox? I use Final Cut for just about everything I do as a professional. When I'm in school, that's when I bring out the Canvas and the Wii videos and stuff like that. But here in the TeacherCast studio, we use Final Cut. What's your video editor publisher of choice?
Okay, so I'll mention one more live streaming tool that's a step up in terms of control and maybe video quality. For those who are creative and maybe they've learned StreamYard and they want to play director a little more, producer, if they have Mac access, Ecamm is a really high quality app that I love. If I have to design a show where I need to put the video windows exactly where I want them and, you know, have different camera angles, it's not as complicated as OBS, which is, or Wirecast, which are really professional level. Ecamm you can use for professional. but I would put it as intermediate plus level. Now, moving on to editing tools, I think anybody who's doing it who has a Mac can start with iMovie and get a great start. There's lots of mobile tools. There's more than I could even go through in an hour or two. For me, my go-to is still ScreenFlow. It's not as cumbersome as using Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere Pro. It's easier to use, but it's also more sophisticated than iMovie, and it has a screencasting function, which means if I'm doing a demonstration, if I'm doing a tutorial for one of my videos, I can record my screen, and so the people watching it can actually see where I'm clicking and what I'm adding to my screen and how I'm going through the steps as I go through them, setting up a broadcast or creating a piece of artwork or what have you for my show.
When we're looking at things, I want to talk a little bit about where we are, right? Because obviously right now it's in the middle of January, and you've been putting out a publication. It's a book for the last couple of years. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of it, basically taking predictions of where we are. And I want to change this question a little bit, not necessarily for what are your predictions for, which is, I know what you're known for, but let's take that from the student level. Where do you see streaming when it comes to students? Where do you see streaming when it comes to education? What are your predictions for video, maybe classroom video, for this year and maybe beyond, if you can go that far?
Well, I think it's an opportunity to expand access and to offer educational experiences that weren't possible not that long ago. So I started to think through, before we got together, I started to think through all the different ways that a school could use live streaming, live video. And of course, you can use it as a teaching tool when students aren't able to attend in person, or even for a student who's out sick, they could log into a live stream and they don't fall behind in their work. I mentioned earlier group work and developing the skill set of working in remote teams. If you give a group assignment and it's a group homework assignment, they don't have to worry about making plans and parents driving them and all that stuff. They can get together from their own homes and come in and speak to each other on video and collaborate. But here are some things I think that are very exciting. And one that I was thinking about is, imagine if a student really has a strong interest in an area or a talent for something that isn't offered at the school that they're going to. Imagine if they could virtually take that class in another school, in the district, in the county, in the state, maybe somewhere across the globe. I started thinking, okay, where would this come in handy? Let's say a student's going to go to college in a foreign country, and they want to study that language. And that language isn't offered at the school that they're attending. Maybe there's another high school or middle school or what have you in the state or in the country that offers that. That could be an opportunity without them having to leave their own school, where they could go into a booth or a small classroom, and they could get on their computer and actually take that course and be graded in that course, do the homework assignments at home, and study that area where they either have a need to learn or a talent, and it's not possible to be in the curriculum at the school they're going. Another area is virtual field trips. We know that there's a lot that goes into getting a class together and finding the right place in driving distance to take a class. But I mean, imagine any museum in the world, wherever you live, you could have a virtual tour, a virtual field trip in which in real time students could ask questions to somebody who has expertise in whatever area is being covered at that exhibit. So I think there's lots, I mean, anything from a zoo to, sporting events, a tour of a stadium, things like that. But I also think for school events, it used to be maybe community access would record something, right? And then, a week and a half later, they would play it 7 times in a row. And then, but imagine live streaming a graduation ceremony or award ceremony or a guest speaker that comes to the school. Even an assembly or student presentations, concerts, choir, a play, or your sporting events, any of those things are great, not only for students who can't attend in person, but for parents who have to work at the time that the event is going on. Now they can still see their children participate, but also for building a sense of community, support for the mission of the school and so forth in that wider community of people in the town, in the city, in the district. I think, of course, parent-teacher conferences would be a great use of it because, again, parents can't always get free from work or get home in time to attend. And I think also, and I think we talked about this before, but I think the visual presentation thing, learning the skills of being on camera and starting to do it at a younger and younger age, because whether you like it or not, this is how we're going to be communicating more and more. And as, there's strains on the economy and so forth, I think people are going to do less traveling and less expense on travel when they can jump on a video and have an experience in talking to somebody and learning from somebody and communicating from somebody. So I think, those are just some of the areas. I'm sure other areas that I haven't even ventured into, but I think there's a lot of possibility of how live video could be used in an educational setting.
And it's so easy, and just to kind of pick apart a couple of those things that you mentioned here, for less than $1,000, you can buy what's called a Mevo camera, MEVO. And basically, they're like $300 some for one, but you can get them at a pack of 3. It's less than $1,000. Right. And they're basically internet-based cameras. Physical units, you put a little tripod on them, you stick them up, but through your phone, you can be switching back and forth and doing live streaming with a multi-camera shoot. What Board of Ed doesn't need one of these? What graduation couldn't use one of these? What middle school couldn't set something like this up to do streaming across an entire campus? Band concerts, musicals, football games, you name it. This isn't difficult to do. And I have noticed, I did some search before we got here because I know we wanted to hit this topic. Many school districts are no longer hiring communication directors. They're hiring directors of marketing, which is a similar position, but it completely takes it from, the communications director, I'm here to put out press releases, I'm here to tell the story, to I'm building a brand for my district. I'm building a brand for each of these schools. I'm helping these schools tell their stories and build that internet presence with that concept. Teachers have been talking about this for years. The more good you share, when that little nick comes out in the community, you've got a lot of good stuff already there to kind of help the search engines find more of the good stuff than that little bad stuff. And
let's face it, in a lot of communities, that's your tax base.
Yes.
It's not just the people who have children in the schools. It's you want to get the people who don't have children in schools to feel very positively about what the schools are accomplishing and how they're contributing to the community.
I totally agree. Also, in addition to that question of how do you do live morning announcements, which again, we have a lot of resources over there. I would urge anybody to head on over to one of our parts of TeacherCast. It's called educationalpodcasting.com. That's where I've been storing all of my, audio stuff, my video stuff, how to do this, lesson plans. I got some freebies out there. head on over to educationalpodcasting.com. Of course, I also have a sister site on that called podcastingwithstudents.com. I have to promote that, Ross, because I just repaid for it over at GoDaddy. So I have to promote that domain as well. But that's all part of TeacherCast. But in the bigger world, Ross, where does somebody go to learn more about this? I mean, feel free to promote your website, but if there's other great places where a teacher can go to learn how to utilize live broadcasting, maybe do morning announcements, all that kind of stuff, where would you send somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll throw out my YouTube channel. It's Ross Brand. It's youtube.com/livestreamuniverse. And there's a lot of videos on there about live streaming. And also, it depends on where you're at, how much you want to invest in it. But I do work with organizations and individuals to help them get started, to help them come up with the right content for their business and their, business objectives, really. Because even if you're doing it to build a personal brand, you have to have the right sort of objectives in terms of understanding how the content you're creating feeds the mission that you're trying to accomplish. So there's a lot that goes into it, and yet at the end of the day, if you have a mobile phone, you have everything you need to go live. You can pick any number of social platforms, and you can literally click go live on those platforms, and one-to-many you can speak to the world. And then there's software for both, desktop and mobile that will enable you to bring on guests, switch shots, audio over video. I always say, if you're only going to invest or upgrade one area, go for audio first, because people will run from bad audio before they'll run from mediocre video. I don't think you can really get bad video from most webcams and phones these days. The technology's too good. But I would say, if you're going to spend any money, spend a little money on a microphone. Get yourself a USB microphone that you can plug into your computer, so you're not using the microphone in your webcam or in your computer, but you're using something that you have close to you that doesn't pick up a lot of background noise. I guess you don't mind if I shout out a product, right?
Please do.
Not sponsored, no commissions on this.
I'll go find that affiliate link.
The Samson Q2U.
Yes.
Is an excellent first microphone. It's got a nice warm sound. It's easy to use. I've recommended it to hundreds of people. I've never had a complaint. Even though I came from radio, when I started live streaming from my computer, it was the first mic that I used. I used it for 2 to 3 years. And, if I had to switch to it and use it now, I would be plenty happy with it. So that's where I'd start. I would think about, if you have any kind of guest on or any other audio, you want to wear headphones so you don't get that bleed through, that feedback through your microphone and get echoes and other unpleasant sounds. And keep your mic off of your desk, so that, if you're typing on your keyboard and you're writing something and moving, you're not tapping the mic and making a lot of noise. If you do those things, I mean, it took me probably 2 or 3 years before I even remembered to look at the camera once in a while. Everything else falls into place. The content comes from what you have to say. If you work on that, then you can always up-level your gear and your equipment and your set and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's people having conversations. And if the conversation's good and it's, the audio's good enough that you can understand clearly what they're saying, that's what's going to determine whether people come back or whether they change the channel, so to speak, and not have an interest in what you're doing.
Talking today to Ross Brand, and a wealth of knowledge, as you guys can tell, all about live streaming videos. And yes, I already hear the requests. He will be back on many times this year. I just have to find a way to keep enticing him. Ross, thank you so much for your time. Before I let you go, I have one more topic that I want to hit.
Sure.
This concept of being an evangelist, this concept of being an influencer, an ambassador, all of those things. Now, I'm bringing this up specifically because, we've talked about this stuff off camera many times, working with different companies and things like that. But on your website, you have several places that you are a brand evangelist and you help people become brand evangelists. As a teacher, how can we help our students? I don't want to say aspire to be one, right? Because every student wants to be an NBA player. Every student wants to be in the NFL. Every student wants to be a TikTok star. I get that concept. But this notion that students do need to be able to do this stuff to create their own, pun intended, brand for themselves.
Right.
How can teachers support students in this whole digital influencer world? I don't know if that's the best way to put the question, but help us here as teachers, as coaches. How can we support our students? This is their life. Video is their life. These 60-second TikToks, shorts, whatever. How do we support that and not just go, oh, put that camera down?
So I think what works for one person doesn't always work for another. I don't think there's a simple answer to it. For some people, it's growing a big audience. It's just the numbers are so blowing people away based on what they're doing that they're going to get interest. They're going to get brand deals. They're going to make ad revenue. For other people, it can be having a small audience, but a very engaged audience, especially an audience willing to spend money in a niche where, there's only so much of a customer base. Then you are the conduit to that customer base, which is another way to do it. In my case, basically, I was role modeling good ways to use the tools of these brands. And I didn't have, it's not so much the size of my audience as because I had a broadcasting background and I had a facility for doing this, I influenced the influencers. So people who had big communities would look to me and go, oh, Ross is using a new live streaming platform, or what mic did he get, or why is he switching shots like this instead of like that? And so I think it's the way I represented myself and my company was something that the companies that I've worked with said, well, that's kind of elevating what's going on in the live streaming and digital media space. We like what you're doing, and we think you could talk well about our brand the way you would discuss it. But more than that, it's seeing you do what you do that we say, that's what people may want to do with our brand. So that doesn't work for every kind of product. But, again, if you're advertising a clothing line and you want to get an influencer, nothing better than somebody wearing the clothes and they fit well and they look great and, they couldn't look better, right? And so in that sense, nobody's looking at me because of the way I look. They're looking at the product that I'm putting out using the tools that those brands are trying to get in the hands of live streamers and digital creators.
Well, let me stop you there. And you had mentioned two things. One, becoming that mega influencer star. And then you also had mentioned becoming a brand ambassador. And I know that was the question that I'm asking. But there is a third, right? Which is you see a kid who's really into something, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be building a birdhouse. It could be making 3D printer stuff. It could be live broadcasting. And you see something in that kid, and all that you want to do is to have them create video tutorials. Forget the audience. Right. Forget the analytics. It's, I want to inspire this kid to show others how they're doing things. It could be, how do you build a Minecraft house? We all know that if you make great content, the audience will show up. But for many teachers, it's not about helping a kid build an influencer sphere. It's just go create content, show off what you know. I've as a music teacher, I've worked with many students where I've suggested, create a video of playing every single scale that you know. Create a video playing every single solo piece that you know. Just make the video. It doesn't necessarily have to be published. It could.
In truth, what you're saying is basically the same route that I took. I started hosting shows because I really liked hosting shows.
Right.
And had an aptitude for it, and had an aptitude for interviewing people and having conversations that people wanted to listen to. And so brands who had a role to play or could have a role to play in that process, whether it's a microphone or it's a software or it's, the website where you're posting it or what have you, they're going to be interested in saying, hey, people seem to like the way he's doing this. But I like what you also say about teaching people. Nothing's better than if you teach people, they learn from you. That's influence. They're always going to look back to you and say, that's somebody I recommend you go check out in order to learn about how to do X, Y, Z.
I think if anything, if anybody gets something out of this episode, there is no true path for this, right? You can pick up a free piece of software. You can pick up a relatively inexpensive mic. You can put together any type of content, but as a coach, as a teacher, just start. And it's the beginning of 2023. And there's so much great content out there. There's so many great opportunities to learn from. Certainly, there's a lot of stuff on TeacherCast. If you head on over to Livestream Universe, you can check out everything that Ross has. But we want to have this conversation this year of how do we help our students become creators? I know for myself, I've been using Canva as a coach almost every week, trying to get teachers to not just do the traditional 5-paragraph essay, but how do we take that essay and turn that into a presentation? How do we take that presentation and have the students do a video underneath of it? The little circle person telling me about the presentation. How do we have them give the presentation on their Chromebook? They could be sitting in the corner of the room, but how do we get them to show us that they know this information? Truly, then you're meeting all of those ISTE standards, and truly then are you helping your students become not just good digital citizens, but future-ready students. Ross, I want to say thank you so much for coming on today. Please, let's do this again. Where does somebody go to learn more about the great things that you're doing in your studios?
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's always a blast talking to you, and I love the brand that you've built up with TeacherCast and all that you do to support the educational community with tech and digital. You can find me at livestreamuniverse.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Just LinkedIn, just search Ross Brand. I'll come up on most platforms. You can find me there, and check out Amazon as well if you're interested in learning what people like Jeff have to say about the future of live streaming and digital media. We don't just talk about live streaming in the book. We talk about everything from education technology to podcasting to course creation to membership communities and all sorts of different avenues that people are using to create and to monetize online. And so you can check that out. The book's called 100 Live Streaming and Digital Media Predictions, Volume 1. There's Volume 2, and hopefully within probably a month of after this is released, there'll be a Volume 3 with Jeff in it as well.
We'll have to have you back on to talk a little bit all that. Maybe we can bring some of the other predictors on that show. Ross, as always, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Hope you guys had a great time with this episode. This is episode, again, number 231. We are just getting started as this brand new year is here. Lots of great content. If you haven't yet decided to make the investment in yourself, head on over to AskTheTechCoach.com, scroll down to the bottom, join our Instructional Coaches Network. You can find one over at Facebook, LinkedIn, and even at K12leaders.com. No matter where you are, we have your coaching needs covered. Head on over to AskTheTechCoach.com and join our free instructional coaching networks. And that wraps up this episode of Ask the Tech Coach. On behalf of Ross and everybody here on the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to Ask the Tech Coach, hosted by Jeff Bradbury of the TeacherCast Educational Network. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach or online at www.askthetechcoach.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.